This is going to be a potentially difficult topic to cover, but I think it's important to cover as it pertains to games and the gaming world, because it might be the most important topic in general in the gaming world. I want to say at the outset that I don't think what I'm going to be talking about, the issue or issues I'm going to be talking about, apply to most of my subs, because I like to think that most of my subs are reflective and really have a think about certain things. And so the topic today is going to be gaming consumerism. And it's something you don't really hear a lot about. I'm going to just flat out say something, that the worst consumer in the world is the gaming consumer. Why is that? Well, let's get into the nitty-gritty as to why that's the case. But before I do that, let me bring up the context. As many of you know, recently EA was really in the doldrums. EA, the massive publishing company, was losing stock. They were not doing very well. And then, surreptitiously, they published the game Apex Legends. Now, I know that EA doesn't make Apex Legends. They're not the developer. They're the publisher. Developer is Respawn Entertainment. They made Titanfall, Titanfall 2, and these games are generally regarded as being very, very good. But the issue at hand is not the developer, it's the publisher. So what happened was EA was not doing very well. They made no prior announcement. They didn't say anything. Apex Legends is released, and boom. And to draw an analogy here, EA was kind of in the middle of the ocean without very much other than perhaps a rowboat and no resources. And Apex Legends comes in, it's the cargo ship, and saves them. But what's the issue at hand here? The issue is the nature of the gaming consumer. Completely indiscriminate, completely mindless for the most part. Now, there's a difference between gaming consumption and most forms of upfront consumption, or even internet online consumption. For example, if you have a consumer relationship with Amazon, for whatever reason, that relationship is soured by multiple failures to deliver on time or just shoddy products, you have a negative opinion of Amazon. You might not want to use their service anymore. In fact, you probably won't. If there's a local restaurant that charges exorbitant prices for poor quality food, word's going to get around. People will stop patronizing that restaurant. And this is true of virtually any other business. But for some reason, and we'll get into those reasons, in the gaming world it's not the case. In the gaming world there's this anonymous factor as well. It's not a personal relationship. You're just some person getting a game online. Most games these days are digital downloads. So whatever used to be the case where you bought a physical copy, that is gone. And you also have to think about the age range. Now, it's very unlikely that a minor will enter a restaurant and order something. He's usually accompanied by an adult who's paying for the meal, as an example. The same thing with Amazon products, typically. But with gaming, you can just have minors fling money at it, usually through their parents. But the parents are not very discriminating here because they don't know very much about the gaming world. And so what you end up with is a population that will just buy anything that seems remotely appealing. Now, going off the reviews, and I have nothing against Apex Legends, it seems to be a good game. People are speaking in highly laudatory tones of the game. They're saying it's what Battle Royale should be. I don't play Battle Royale, so I can't really attest to that. But they're saying it's a good game. It's what everyone's waiting for, yada, yada, yada. Okay, that's great. But looking at this long term in the bigger picture, EA is a terrible publisher. Hands down the worst. I don't think many people disagree about it. There are many bad ones, right? ZeniMax Studios, whatever. But EA is really hands down the worst. And the gaming consumer has effectively thrown EA a life vest to save them from their predicament. And it might be the thing that saves them long term, because it looks like Apex Legends will have a great deal of longevity. Now, I feel bad for the developer who has to work under the tyranny of EA or the auspices of EA. But the reality is that the gaming consumer is the worst consumer because he doesn't think about the consequences of his purchases. He doesn't think about the fact that, yes, of course, Apex Legends is free to play, but it has tons of microtransactions, really expensive ones, and that money is going to go to EA, and it's going to keep them afloat for a while longer and perpetuate this cycle. Now, I don't think I need to remind my audience of what EA has done. They've ruined developers such as BioWare, they've ruined franchises such as Star Wars, and the list is getting quite long at this rate. But The idea that used to prevail was that you want to hit them where it hurts. You hit them with your wallet, but what can you do when you have a massive amount of people, and I mean millions of people, who simply don't give a shit one way or another? All they care about is that Apex Legends is fun. And I don't really begrudge them that per se, but it does go to show just how unreflective the gaming consumer population is. And I've spoken to these people. I've had lengthy conversations with these people about EA being a terrible publisher, about ruining franchises, about putting pressure on developers through poor organization, through deadlines that are unreasonable, etc., etc. And all they have to say is, yeah, bro, I don't fucking give a shit, bro, because fucking Apex Legends, it's fucking fun, man. It's free to play anyway, man. I don't need to fucking buy anything. Like, it's fucking fun, bro. You should try it, bro. Fair enough, but after repeated conversations like this and just seeing how popular Apex Legends is, you know that people are not trying to hit EA where it hurts. The world, specifically the gaming world, would be a better place if EA as a publisher didn't exist and there were a more reasonable publisher. Now, I don't think Microsoft is perfect by any stretch, but I think by any metric we could say that Microsoft is a better publisher overall than EA. Now, CD Projekt Red is its own publisher, so we can say they're better too. These things all exist in gradations, but it is a very disappointing and very sad aspect of gaming that the gaming consumer seems to embody, namely that he or she is the worst consumer in the world, indiscriminate, uncaring, and really just living for the now. Part of that is the anonymous factor. Gaming purchases are a very detached process. Again, compare and contrast that with an Amazon purchase where your personal information is involved, you're a customer, they aim to deliver, or some kind of local restaurant you're patronizing, or even a barber shop. Anything, really. And none of that is at play, and so service tends to be better. EA does not provide a good service overall. They may have published a good game in the form of Apex Legends, which they didn't develop, as I said, but they're not providing a good service and people don't really care because the relationship between customer and service is so skewed in the gaming world. And unfortunately, I don't think we have a good workaround with this. The reality is this is the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future because human nature dictates this in part, but also we can just look at patterns. Look at some of these sports games that EA releases repeatedly with very, very minor changes. I've heard there's been some shake-up there and it's changed a little bit, but whether it's Madden football or some other sporting game, there happen to be very few changes in different iterations and people buy the title anyway, and it works. Were I the person directing the masses of consumers, I would have said, look, I understand that Apex Legends is a great game and you don't want to punish the developer, but EA needs to go. EA needs to go someplace else. They need to disappear, and there needs to be some kind of new publisher in charge that is going to be more reasonable in how it approaches the developer and the consumer. But we're never going to get that opportunity because things like Apex Legends happen. It fuels the cycle. So EA just needs to exist to continue to be shit. And BioWare died under the auspices of EA. And many of you, I'm sure, were BioWare fans at some point in time. I was too, in a different life, in a different era. And so we know what happens when EA is at the reins. Even if Apex Legends were the most fun game in the world, even for me, someone who doesn't play Battle Royale games, I still wouldn't get the game. I don't want to support EA. I'm tired of EA. I'm tired of AAA gaming being absolute shit and various publishers being a major contributing factor in this. Now, before I get the interjection, but Stardust, it's free to play. You don't have to pay anything. Of course, you don't have to pay anything. All you need to do is download the game. But it also has tons of loot boxes, and some of those loot boxes, incidentally all cosmetic, are very, very expensive. Some of them will run you $20 a pop, and that money will go to EA. Now, I do get this. You play games because they're fun. But there are other elements here. And so in some sense, despite me not wishing ill upon the developers, I want every game that EA publishes to fail so EA fails and something new in the world emerges instead of EA. That's my view. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about gaming consumption, the gaming consumer. Again, very little of this would be directed at you. Anyway, enough on this topic. There's more to come if I'm still alive. Bye-bye, and enjoy your weekend. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.